It's still Christmas. The lights are still twinkling, but soon schedules may be returning to normal. And yet the church continues to proclaim Emmanuel, God with us. And today, on the feast of the Holy Family, the church does something very intentional. It asks us not just to celebrate that God was born into the world, but to look at what kind of family God chose to be born into. When we hear the words Holy Family, most of us picture something right away: Mary, Joseph, and the child Jesus. A family that feels calm, safe, secure. It's a comforting image, and we tend to hold on to it. Maybe because family life, as we actually live it, isn't always calm and settled. It's complicated. It's still being worked out, sometimes tender, sometimes tense, and sometimes both at the same time. So over time, we tend to clean up the picture a little. We romanticize the Holy Family, we smooth out the rough edges. But the gospel we just heard doesn't give us a gentle scene. It gives us a family under threat. Jesus is born in Bethlehem, and not long after, Joseph wakes up in the middle of the night with a warning from an angel. Get up, take the child and his mother, flee. The child is not safe. And Joseph doesn't debate. He doesn't wait till morning. He gets up at night and they go. No careful packing, no long plan, just urgency to leave. They become refugees in Egypt. They live as outsiders. And even when the danger seems to pass, even when Herod is dead, the return is cautious. They don't return to where they started. They hear who is ruling, and they didn't choose to go there. It's dangerous. So they settle in Nazareth, where it's safer, a place small enough to be overlooked. That's the Holy Family. Not a family protected from uncertainty, rather a family learning how to live amid the world's danger. And that matters because this feast is often heard as a celebration of the ideal family, as if the church is saying to us, here is the model, here is the perfect picture, now go and be like that. The gospel isn't naive about family life. It doesn't give us a perfect picture, it gives us a real one. A family that is trying to protect the child, a family that is making decisions under pressure, a family that is navigating fear, uncertainty, and displacement. So maybe part of what this feast is doing is shifting the question. Instead of asking, do we have the perfect family? This feast is asking, where is God when family life is hard? Where is God when relationships are strained? Where is God when the world doesn't feel safe? Because that's where most of us live, isn't it? Some families are carrying financial strain and decisions that feel heavier than they used to. Some families are carrying stress around health, work, housing, stability. Some families are living with mental health struggles in ourselves or in someone we love. In some families, they're navigating relationships and after separation or divorce. Some families are caring for children while caring for aging parents. And some families are holding their family together across distance, across borders, and across differences. And many of us have learned that family is not only who we were born to. Family is also who we've had to gather over time in order to survive and feel safe. this feast has space, has room for all of that. Because the Holy Family is not holy because everything went smoothly. They are holy because God was with them in what unresolved. And that's why Colossians begins where it begins. Before it says anything about household roles, which we didn't hear, it talks about what relationships require when people try to live together. Compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, bearing with one another, forgiving one another, putting on love. Those are not virtues for families who never struggle. Those are virtues for families who do. And it's also why we need to be careful, especially with this feast, not to let one line or one phrase dominate the whole reading or the whole day. Because that's something we do as human beings, not only with texts, but also with each other. We take one sentence, one comment, one failure, one wound, and we hold on to it. We let it define the whole person or let it define the whole relationship. And sometimes that happens in families over years. And sometimes someone says something that hurts us. Someone does something that changes our trust. And even when the moment is long past, the weight remains. Not because the harm wasn't real or the pain didn't matter, but because holding on to it can feel safer than risking vulnerability again. And over time, we learn something else. The burden often falls heaviest on the one who keeps carrying it. Is that person you? Forgiveness, when and if it becomes possible, is not pretending nothing happened. It's not excusing harm. It's not forcing reconciliation on a timetable. It's about restoring freedom. Restoring freedom for the person who caused harm, if they can receive it and change. And restoring freedom for the person who has been living under the weight of it. That's not easy work. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it requires boundaries. Sometimes it requires help. And sometimes what is not restored is the relationship as it once was, but rather the heart's capacity to breathe again. That kind of work is hard. That kind of work is holy. And this is where the gospel keeps us from turning suffering into something distant, something tucked away safely someplace else. Because this story of fear and flight is not only an ancient story. For families in Palestine, in Ukraine, and other places of conflict, this gospel is not symbolic. Parents are making daily decisions about how to protect their children, where it is safe to sleep, and how to live the fear they did not choose. And while the circumstances are different, that same kind of disquiet is familiar, closer to home as well. To migrant families unsure what tomorrow holds, to families separated by incarceration, to children moving between households, to parents lying awake with worries they never expected to carry. The gospel doesn't rank suffering. It doesn't turn pain into a competition. It simply tells it as it is. That families live under pressure and God is present there. So maybe the word that needs to be spoken on this feast is not pressure to live the romanticized version of the Holy Family, but permission. Permission to stop pretending that holiness only belongs to families that look settled or put together or uncomplicated. Permission to believe that when we keep showing up for one another, when we keep trying, when we keep choosing love again and again in small ways, grace is already at work there. Because God didn't come into a human family through a household that had everything figured out. God entered through a family on the move, a family that did not get to live that fairy tale that we make it out to be. Which means that the places in our own lives that feel unresolved, fragile, or strained are not the places that God is absent. And though we may feel it, they may be though we may not feel it, they may be the very places where God is the closest. So at this end of this feast, we can say then with confidence, your family is not less holy because it's complicated. Your family is not outside of God's care because it's still being worked out. This is what Emmanuel looks like. Your holy family tells us that God is there in the love you try to live, in the patience you are learning, in the forgiveness you are struggling toward, in the protection you are offering, in the meals you make, in the calls you return, the boundaries that you set, in the worry you carry for someone you love, and the decisions you're trying to make with integrity, and in the ways that you keep showing up, even when it's hard. God is not absent. God sees it, and God sees you. And the Holy Family reminds us that when God chooses to be with us, God chooses to dwell in real family life. Not sanitized, not the ideal, but faithful under pressure. Those may be the very place where God chooses to be the closest.